Why don't my three panelists come on up, and I will introduce you for that. Again, the Becoming a Best Place to Work started with a conversation that I had with Patty. Patty and I had met several years ago, and we were just talking about some of the success that she had been making with some of her clients. And I have heard from all the companies that I'm working with how difficult it is to find the right talent right now, how difficult it is to bring them into the company and then retain them. And so we got going on that conversation, which led to our event today. So thank you, Patty, for helping me put this together. I appreciate it very much.
No problem.
And then as we introduce folks, might as well start with Patty since you're right here to my immediate left. Patty is founder and owner of her own business. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Lean in a little bit, yep.
So I started Dark & Associates in 2005. It's an HR consulting firm / management consulting firm. And I work with businesses, small to mid-size. I also have some enterprise clients. But I really specialize in making sure that we get the right people in the right spot. I don't recruit, I always say that. But I'll put a system inside the organization to really assist human resources and the overall organization in a very cost-effective manner that allows the organization to operate efficiently, to continually add new people in that become top performers. I think that's a succinct way to say it. I also offer leadership development and management training and some adjunct areas, but that's overarchingly what I do.
All right, great. Well, welcome, and thank you again for helping me put this together. Corie Liebl is founder and CEO of Chromatic 3D Materials. Corie and I have been working together for about 3.5 years, and her journey has been fun to watch, and the progress they've made has been substantial, and she's been able to raise capital. And then I've also seen from the inside what a great culture she has created and fostered at her company. So Corie, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. So I come from the materials industry. That's a little bit about myself. I've lived all over the place. You're going to hear a little bit about my background, both working at Dow Chemical as well as Segetis. Segetis is a startup company I moved here for back in 2008. So I've lived in Minnesota for about 15 years, but I'm a New Hampshire girl at heart. Chromatic 3D Materials started in 2016. We've grown to about 25 people. We're a technology company first and foremost. So we are developing technology for industrial grade 3D printing for implementation on production floors. And at the base of that is making sure that the chemistry and the materials that we use in those processes are robust and proven and trusted by our customers. So, and we have a German subsidiary. So I like to joke that we're probably one of the world's smallest functional multinational companies. And so we've had to make sure that we have a culture that reaches across the Atlantic. So.
All right, well, I look forward to hearing more about your story. On the far end of the panel table is Margaret Barrett. Margaret is attorney, founder, and owner of Safe Harbor Estate Law. And Margaret has worked with Patty in the past. And Margaret, tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm.
Sure. I am a St. Paul girl. Lived in the cities all my life. And I started my firm 10 years ago. I did a variety of things before that, but I hadn't been in law for years. I was at a big firm years before. So I started estate and elder law because at my age, I was in my early 50s, I was starting to think about my parents, and I realized all my friends and I were thinking about my parents, or our parents and ourselves getting older, and it seemed like a good market. So I started my own firm by myself, and I actually was working part-time. I had a little girl, and so 10 years later, I have 16 employees. We're hiring for 4 new positions now. Patty has been very helpful in helping us get good people that fit the job well. So we do estate and elder law, and our firm, it's the last couple of years, and the budget for this year is to grow about 40% a year. So fast growth, but to me, I want it to be manageable.
Great. Well, welcome. And Patty, let's come down here and start with you. Since you are our main expert today, tell us a little bit about how Darkin Associates have assisted organizations in establishing better cultures.
So I have had a client win this award. Surprisingly, Rick asked me this question. We were trying to figure out a topic that would be interesting to people. I've had a client win this award every year since it was first brought to this state. And they've been all different sizes. So I put a system in to the organization, but it starts with the leader. So I think that the leader has to be open and willing to grow. They set the tone. As goes the leader, so goes the organization. You've seen this, right? We've all lived it. If you have an inflexible leader, not adapting to change, it's a problem. When you have a leader that actually recognizes they need to do something different to attract new talent, retain good people, they open their mind up. So it starts there. And what happens then is they'll open the budget up, they'll explore different opportunities. And as that progresses, I will work at that top level and then put the system into the HR team, work with the HR team. Training doesn't take much time, and assist side by side to make sure that they understand how to operate and effectively get the right people into the organization. The tools are all validated, meaning legally compliant, reliable. They're actually AI generated, so when you're talking about the AI things coming up, they were doing AI before AI was a thing. So highly reliable, that's AI, that's HR speak for it keeps you out of court. And so, and they actually have statistical relevance. So, meaning the people that get hired stay. They produce. So once you get the system in place, then all things start clicking along. Margaret's actually probably going to talk more about that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So real quickly, talk a little bit more about the process you use to implement a best place to work system.
Well, the process, it's an employee vote.
Okay.
So the employees actually are confidential. It's a confidential vote that the employees themselves do within the organization. And so there is no input that's done by anybody within the organization other than the employees themselves. So the beauty of that is that when you see that recognition done by any organization, understand that the leader of the organization or the leadership, they haven't had any sway over the people that are responding on those. Those are the people within the organization saying, this is a great culture. This is a great place to work. So it becomes a huge recruiting tool.
All right. Hey, everybody pull their mics a little bit closer. The room echoes and stuff, and maybe if you're in the microphone, it might be a little easier for folks to hear. Thank you. Talk a little bit about why your firm, or why you think your firm has had a client win one of these awards so frequently.
I personally think it's just a system that works. It's cost effective, it's not time consuming, and I think it just works. I'm not going to go out and do some big headline about, hey, we're the latest, greatest. You know, you can see a ton of different things out there about it. I'm just kind of a quiet, working person that's been head down year after year. I met Margaret, I was speaking to, I think it was a sole practitioner law firm group. I'll go out and occasionally speak and do things, but pretty much all my business comes from referrals. And I like to work with leadership that's pretty healthy. So if the leader's not open, that tends to be an issue for me. So it all starts with the leader.
All right. Good takeaway there. Margaret, let's jump down to you. What led to this initiative for you deciding to want to go through a process like this?
Well, Rick, it's the same thing you talked about at the beginning. It's a tough hiring market. It's a lot harder to get great employees than to get great clients. So it's a priority for me, and I thought it would help with that. I also thought it would give me some feedback because it's anonymous on the employee's part. Can you hear me okay? Is the mic in a good spot? Okay, and there's feedback you get in different areas that you might not otherwise get because it's anonymous. And the first year I did it was actually in 2021. 2022, sorry. It's pretty inexpensive. I think it only costs a couple $100. And then you do the survey, it came back. At the first year, I didn't make it. And it's a very high standard. Like, I think I got a really good score, like 96% or something. But there was one employee that was a little bit, slightly off in a couple areas, not really high, just pretty high. And it is anonymous, but we have not that many employees. We had 12 then, so I kind of thought this is somebody that was being performance managed. And I'm pretty sure it was. So that was good information for me to have. And I told the employees, like, obviously I'd love to get this, but so we can get more great people like you here. But if I don't, I'm getting good feedback, and I really want your honest feedback. So I value it. So, and that one, I think it helped me realize this person's attitude was a little worse than I thought.
Talk a little bit from your perspective as a business leader about the process that you went through.
Yes, I will tell you honestly, my office manager did most of it, but I think the executive applies for the best executive, and then you apply for the best places to work and provide Quantum with everybody's name and email addresses, and then they send the survey out to them separately, and then we would get reports toward the end, like, there's 2 people who didn't reply yet. So then we'd have to say, hey, everybody, there's 2 people that didn't reply. We didn't really know who they were, but just to make sure they all got in on time. And that was it. Then a little while later, it comes out. The results come out.
So the survey is a key part of this. The fact that it's anonymous is a key part of this. Talk a little bit about the information that you actually did get, and then how you ended up responding to that.
Okay, well, like I said, it was quite positive, but we really looked at the things that were a little bit less than stellar. And one of them was that the benefits could have been better, which I realized. And one of the things I've tried to do as I grow my firm, and one of my motivations is that I can add more benefits. And so I've added them every year. So anyway, we looked at that, and boy, did I add benefits this year. For little things from there's a wellness benefit, $100 a month, tuition reimbursement. Now I'm doing an adoption benefit, extended parental leave. I went with my medical. This is the most costly, that I'm paying 99% of the employee and the dependents. So that's a big change for me. Trying to remember what else. I mean, we have a bunch of intangible things, but those things that people traditionally think of as employee benefits, we did that. They get a lot of earned extra PTO days by meeting goals. I don't know if you want me to go into that, but there's other miscellaneous things we do.
All right.
But that was specifically in response to the survey. Also, our IT have significantly invested in that
Okay.
as a response.
And
Right.
if I can just add,
Yeah.
I think benefits are interesting because you can look at them and say, okay, they cost $100 a month or something like that, but you get so much more capital with your employees spending that $100 and adding $100 to their paycheck. I mean, it's definitely something because there's more to it. It's saying, hey, we think your wellness is important to you. I mean, so it's in this day and age of a lot of increases in pay and salary and stuff, it's something that it's an alternative that can be more cost effective than just pay raises. So
Yeah, high impact. Corie, let's stay with you. So you worked at a large company, Dow Chemical, and then a couple of small companies, Sigedis, and now your firm, Chromatic 3D Materials. What was your experience like in the different cultures, kind of comparing large company to small company?
yeah, so first of all, when I talk about Dow, you should think about it almost like a mythical creature that existed a long time ago, because it's been so long since I was there. Anything I say is not necessarily relevant, but to Dow, as it may be today. So Dow, just so you know, is about a $60 billion company. You should think about, BASF has more name recognition. Between them, Dow and BASF, they probably supply something like 2/3 of all the plastics in the world. It's a very large company. I think the interesting contrast between culture in a large corporation and a small one is that the culture in a large company can be very, very strong, but it's more organic coming from the firm. Where in a small business, it's shaped by the individuals and the leaders, the individual personalities that are all together. And so the culture is just as important in both cases. So, and a great example of this, when I was fortunate enough to do some executive education at Dow, one piece of exec ed was out at Darden with multiple other companies. So every company, it was like 4 or 5 companies, each sent 3 to 5 people. And what was interesting then is that there was GM, McDonald's, Dow, SK, and within each group, like the culture stood out even in just a handful of people. GM was buttoned up, formal, wearing suits every day, and just very square. McDonald's, they were all, I'm loving it, and it wasn't just that they were marketing people, it was, even the guy who was doing, commercial architecture for like the cultures of each company were very distinct and evident in only 3 or 4 representatives. And they certainly weren't chosen to be, I wasn't chosen by Dow as here is our Dow representative. The Dow people, we all kept to ourselves. We didn't associate with one another. It was, and so it was just very interesting to see how distinct each of the cultures were. So culture is real and it exists and it permeates. The trouble, I think, with a small business is that because it's shaped by the individuals, it makes it more incumbent to take care of it. You have to make sure that every hire is building your culture. You have to make sure that any person who's not helping the culture is kind of either shaped up or shipped out. And it also means, like at Sigedis, we had a very strong personality in the founder. And it was a married Russian couple. And so even the dynamics of their marriage was played out in the company. And eventually they left. And what was interesting is that as much as the culture was built around their personalities, positive and negative, and while everyone agreed it was a healthy thing when they left, it left a void in the culture that we, as leaders, we had to kind of figure out how to fill that void and decide what we were going to become. So anyway, that cultural awareness is important. I think the other thing about Dow is that they had a very strong culture, but also very little awareness about it, and it definitely affected business performance. So Dow was very acquisitive, acquired a lot of companies. They could never keep anyone from an acquired company. So it made it difficult for them to achieve some of the synergies that they were looking for.
And then, so obviously these experiences shaped who you are as a business leader. What specific things have you done at Chromatic that you took or learned from those experiences?
So I think the first and foremost is just having that level of cultural awareness, like recognizing what things are shaping the culture of the company. The other thing that I saw at Sigedis that definitely shapes what I do at Chromatic is that at Sigedis, it was a bio-based chemistry company. When oil prices dropped, it made it very difficult to do business. And so we were really running into business problems. And it made it, we kind of started to have a loser mentality. So sort of a losing team mentality. If you think about a sports team, if you're losing half of your games or more, there's kind of a losing mentality that sets up in the locker room, where people start accusing each other of not doing what's necessary for the team's success. And one of the things that I learned from Sigedis that I've taken into Chromatic is that it became clear that some of the things that were shaping that losing mentality had nothing to do with what was going on inside the walls. It was outside the walls. It was a market condition that was impacting the business. But because inside the walls we didn't have that awareness, it meant it was allowed to affect the culture of the company. And so there's a time, and that's one of the things I've tried to bring in with Chromatic, is like even through pandemic or collapse in BC or whatever, to make sure that we don't let those outside events affect the culture inside, creating a buffer.
And then last question for you, and then we'll go to some group sessions, and depending on our time, we'll maybe get some questions from everybody else. But what do you think have been the top couple of most impactful culture building activities that you've done at Chromatic?
So a lot of it's organic and came from suggestions from the team. So one thing that we started very early on, we had someone coming from the software industry, we started daily stand-ups. And so we started daily stand-ups, and that impacted the culture. But then the other thing that impacted, one of our newer employees 2 years ago started this thing where we start with a poll. And it's a crazy poll. I mean, so today the poll was, would you rather be a world-class surfer or a world-class wrestler? I chose wrestler. And so she just comes up with, crazy polls. And we do them every day, and this poll is like, we've had customer visits, we have the customer vote on whatever, and we're not ashamed of it. I think that's an important element. We're not ashamed of it. We have fun with it and allowed to have fun. So you got to let. So then that really shapes a lot of our culture. It's just that daily poll, and that it's a little silly. But also it creates everyone's presence and sense of belonging in team, that you got to show up. It inadvertently kind of sets, while we have a very open schedule, everyone knows the stand-up's at 9, so it kind of gets everything going at 9. So that's just one example.
Okay, great. Okay, so probably recruiting, I'm assuming, is the top thing that comes from this. So why don't we just hear quickly from everybody, whoever would like to start, just jump in, but I'd like to just hear a little snippet from everyone about how you believe the culture and being a best place to work has helped with recruiting.
Well, I can go first. One of the things I want to say with Best Places to Work, they do give you a whole social media packet. A gentleman came to the office all dressed up nice for social media pictures, gave us a nice plaque, gave us a spread in Minneapolis St. Paul magazine. So they give you all the tools, and then we use them. And Patty reminded me the other day, I'm running these promotions on social media for the opening jobs, and she's like, make sure all of them are mentioning Best Places to Work, which I reminded the social media company to do that. So we have a page on our website that's called You Should Work Here, because it's marketing. And so we have, of course, the Best Places to Work on there, and quotes from our staff, and pictures of us doing fun things, like we do monthly massages in the office people get, and fun events and things like that. So I guess especially the Best Places to Work, we're leveraging it everywhere we can. We also have the core values are on the website, the You Should Work Here page, and every month we have a core value award, and whoever won it last month gives it to somebody else the next month and says which core value it's for, and then they get money with that. So that's a way to keep it going amongst themselves. And I just want to say, I hired a director of operations, first person in that role in July, and then a couple months later, she was offered her prior job, her boss's job at her prior job, which was a huge increase, $70,000 increase in pay, huge responsibility, big promotion. She turned it down because of the culture. Yep, I did give her a raise though. But I was like, oh my gosh, if I would have lost her, like she's my right hand, and 10 of my employees report to her now instead of me. And so she was there about a week or two, and she said, I've never seen culture like this anywhere. I mean, people care and are supportive, and part of it comes from what Cora said, is weeding out people that are less than wonderful about adding to the culture. Yep.
So that's going to segue to what I was going to say. This really is a discussion about culture. And I asked a friend of mine who just took a job why she took that job. If that's my phone, you can go in my purse and shut it off.
That's never happened to me before. One of the panelists, it's their phone ringing. That's a first. 17 years, that's right? The first.
No, it would be mine, I'm sure. I asked her why she took the job. She's highly competent and could be very selective. She said the number one reason was culture and the boss that she was going to be working for. Now, if you have worked for someone toxic, if you've ever been in a bad workplace, you know you left, right? We all have done that one time in our life, probably, if you were 20 or whatever. The point is, culture trumps all. And that's why we're discussing that. Mm-hmm. So setting the culture, whether you're a 5-person firm or a 2,000-person firm, it's critical. And it does start with the leader. It really does. And it permeates down. So if the leader isn't healthy, then it just keeps flowing down. So that's how you were able to keep her. And money won't keep someone, not long term. And that's proof right there. That's all I need to say on that. Okay,
Cora?
So, I had someone we were going through an interview process. I was out of town, said, yeah, sure, come by the office, meet some of the people. He was at a stand-up. He was like, I couldn't have turned him down for the job if I wanted to. He was like, I want to work there, just from being a part of that stand-up, but it was more than the stand-up. It was also all the employees' attitude about it that got them there. The retention is, creating that a work culture where people are excited to come in every day, where they feel respected by their peers, respected by their boss, listened to. It is apparent immediately to people who are looking in the company, and also people who choose to stay in the company. They value, that they want to come into work every day. And so, just in terms of retention, I think in the last 8 years of operating, I've only had one person quit for reasons that were not personal, where they're like, I don't want to work here anymore, just one. And it's in all the little things you do. You know, it's whether you vote on wrestlers and surfers, but it's also about how do you choose to have a conversation about having someone improve their performance? How do you choose to have them interact with, deal with a good idea they have or a bad idea that they have? How do you help them figure out it's a good idea? So it's, and it really is that has to permeate. And I think as you grow, making sure that the leaders on your team also understand those core values well enough that they can enforce them and embody them as well. And that's, when you talk about a company like Dow, definitely it had to be at a point where everyone was raised in that company and then its managers know how to operate. And you really want to get to that point where your managers and all of your team knows how to operate and what are the values that are core to your company.
Okay, thank you. What about if we flip that and look at the other side of the coin? For all three of you, I'd like to hear your perspectives on what do you think is the most detrimental thing that you've seen hurt corporate culture or erode the goodwill that a company's trying to build, to trying to be a Bet's place to work?
I think that's kind of simple. Bad behavior. Mm-hmm. When leaders or managers don't address bad behavior in the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I think too, I think it's true that when the person with bad behavior leaves, you get more confirmation that you made the right decision. You kind of find out things that it was worse than you thought. I think it's generally worse than you thought. I've also had it where the bad behavior is pretty isolated and only a couple people see it. And then when the person leaves, then some people who didn't see it, like, oh no, she left. What are we going to do now? Why are people leaving? And it's like, you can't really say much because there was good reason and you wanted him to leave. But anyway, that just needs to be managed, I guess. But the toxicity, it has to go. It can be really, it has to be dealt with and hopefully changed. And if it's not going to change, then they're not a core value fit to me. Right. You got to be able to take feedback and grow.
Right.
And I think that core value element of traction and EOS is probably one of the most valuable pieces of that book, is making sure that you're coming up with what are your core values and using them to judge whether people are staying or leaving. Just along similar lines, I think at Sigedis, there was definitely some toxicity that developed that was entirely due to one or two people were in leadership positions that were not upholding the values. And it was interesting to see how it improved with, a flip of the switch when a new CEO came in and said, we're not going to do that anymore. And then it just immediately fixed. And so but it really is in all the little things and making sure you're aware of when people are not upholding it.
All right. Hey, let's take a little bit of time. Anybody in the audience have a question or two? Well, I saw several, but that was the first one right there, Eric.
Thank you very much. Question for you on leadership. In a great culture, and I know you're speaking about yours too, but we have a great culture, and a new CEO comes in, new president, maybe it's a buyout, maybe it's just transitional personnel. Can that great culture make that leader a great leader?
If people on the other side of the room didn't hear it, or for the video's purposes, the question was, assume there's a great culture, a new business leader comes in, can the culture basically lift up the business leader, and can that culture overcome, going both ways, that new leader coming in?
I don't think so.
Well, speak into the mic there.
Are you trying to ask us a trick question, Eric?
I don't think so. I think I think a good culture it's precious, and people know if the leader is not going to uphold it. And then you start seeing, like, all those people who agreed to stay for lower pay or whatever, they're out of there. They got other opportunities if they smell a rat. Now it might be that new leader, if they're smart, they'll catch on to, wow, this is pretty good. I need to make sure I'm upholding it. But they smell a rat.
Margaret, anything?
Yeah, it's risky. I think that the leader would probably get some benefit from the positive culture, but would the net effect be more positive for the company or negative? It's risky, I think. I mean, I'm preparing my son to be CEO of my business, but he's part of it too. And I think of him, and I even though he's already part of it, it's not new, but I do think he learns something from the culture. But there's also a lot of training and preparing going on with him directly. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think
is the next question going to be a little easier?
I don't know. Let's stay over here. The second hand I saw was there.
Thank you, all of you, by the way, for sharing your insights. We heard a lot of great feedback about the best places to work. We didn't hear any comment, which I was a little surprised, about how you might have had to adapt to the changing workplace environment between on-site, hybrid, remote. Were there any unique challenges and how you overcome that?
Okay, so again, repeating it for that side of the room or the videos, the question is with the changing workplace, the work from home, the hybrid, all that's transpired over the last couple of years, what changes, if any, did you folks either have to do or observe?
Well, I have a paralegal in Oregon, so we were able to work remotely already. We scan documents as soon as they come in the office. So we could do that. Everybody's expected. In fact, they get a home office reimbursement, which is tax-free, for having a place to work at home. So, like when COVID hit, it was kind of hard for some things because especially older people, well, I mean, I'm not old or anything, but I like in-person meetings too. And so there, especially for the clients, it was harder, I think, to go to all Zoom meetings. And now we still have clients that more prefer the in-person meetings. But as far as there's like 6 inches of snow coming tonight, I heard, and so people are already on Teams going like, I'm going to work from home tomorrow. So we're pretty flexible with it, and it works well. But we were pretty well prepared already.
Our office there's a lot of lab work involved, so there's a lot of people really need to be present and on location. But we're flexible with the ones who don't need to be. Like our sales team is completely remote. Obviously, we're working with a German team, so that causes people to have the habits of either recording meetings or engaging with each other virtually. I think it's a shame that people don't want to work together. I think interactions are just important. There are some jobs where it's less interactive than others, and so you should be able to accommodate things where people, like in a law firm, maybe you don't need to necessarily work together, but you need to create a time and a space when you are going to be together. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a sign of a gap if people don't want to come together and work. It is right. It's a sign of a good culture if people choose to be there. I don't want to say that if your team is all virtual that it's a bad culture. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think people should want to engage with each other. There should be a reason for a company to exist and not be an association of consultants.
Okay, Patty, have you had any observations on that?
I have a couple observations. First of all, I think it was a huge paradigm shift for a lot of organizations that thought they could never have virtual employees who all of a sudden had to. And they found out they could do it. So to me, I had worked virtually for years, and I had multiple companies who all of a sudden, wow, they found out they could do it, right? So, secondly, I'm going to say, Cora, I think you're right. I think it's important and essential for people to work together. And I'm seeing a distinct difference in leadership style generationally. And I cannot stress how important it is that we recognize that. And I can tell you in some of the leadership training curriculum I'm developing that we need to account for that. And so bringing people together is essential. All of this remote learning and the remote training, and we're going to just continue to see it as these generations grow. We're going to see the impact of this. We're going to see it on businesses, on innovation, lots of things. So, yeah, a whole nother discussion.
All right, we'll save that for next time. All right, a couple minutes left. Let me ask a couple of real quick questions, a lightning round kind of thing. So answer back 30 seconds or less. What would be one piece of advice you'd give the audience as they're planning out their companies over the next couple of years?
Invest in your people. One of the things I didn't mention that I really like to do, we do monthly one-on-ones with each employee and really check in with where they're at, what's going well, what's not, how can we support you. If they want to move on, I'd rather know sooner and help them. And so I think that support and two-way communication, open door. We also do reviews twice a year, good feedback to really help them feel valued and respected and co-creators with you of what is going on with their career.
I would say culture really affects how your business performs. It affects your team and whether they want to work for you. And you really need to be culturally aware and deliberate. And culture has spoken as well as unspoken elements to it. And you should just be aware of what those are. And when there are things that you don't like, you really need to take steps to change that.
I would say that both of what they said, that's 5 seconds of it, and then also pay attention to manager and leader training, because that gets, especially manager level, gets underestimated because they have huge impact on your retention of your best people. And also, if you do surveys, culture, engagement, pay attention and do something with the results.
All right, next question, lightning round again, quick answers. What piece of advice that you've received throughout your career do you wish you would have gotten earlier?
Don't take conflict personally. I think it took me a while to learn that. But that has nothing to do with culture.
Oh, yeah, it does.
I don't sweat the small stuff is what's coming to me. Like you pick your battles and what you're going to really focus on and be worried about, and let the other stuff go. Prioritize.
Don't take criticism personally.
Mm-hmm.
All right, some good stuff there for things outside of the workplace. All right, lastly, what's the one thing that you'd like the audience to take with them regarding today's topic?
I think one thing that everyone wants to do good quality work. And so you want people to have a reason to bring that quality of work to your team, to your corporation, to your business. So give them a reason to come to work and don't waste their time.
I would say for me, it's really personally rewarding to have a good culture and have good people and have people at the reviews tell me, I love working here. There's no other law firm I'd want to work for, especially because law firms have a bad reputation for good reason. So on top of the money and running a good business and all that and having less stress, it's just really personally rewarding to help develop people and see them thrive.
People, when you start a job, you're engaged, right? You walk into that job the first day, you want to be there, you want to commit. Then what happens? If all of a sudden your boss isn't invested. So when you think about that from a higher level, try and keep those people engaged. Figure out what it takes. Invest in your managers. Invest in your leaders. They'll invest in those people.
All right. Reminder, February 8th, AI number 3, bring your questions. You are going to be the content that day. March 7th, raising capital. Got a panel of 3 of us talking about that. And then April 11th, cybersecurity and data protection and how that can actually be a positive enabler for your business. So with that, let's give a round of applause to our panelists.